I found it on Rhema Radio.
Hi, this is Jason, the station director of Rhema Radio. I want to thank you for your support in making the ministry what it is today. Since our launch in 2016, we've consistently released 2 shows weekly. We've featured sermons and songs from churches and talents all across Malaysia. We've been privileged to have on our shows thought leaders from education, family, government, arts, media, business, and the church. Our mission field is the digital space. Our task is to create and curate content that is God-inspired and relevant to the world we live in today, to be a platform for kingdom unity, to be a resource center for the coming famine that is not of food and water, but of God's Word. This is our assignment, and we've experienced the grace of God upon us to do this. So many testimonies have been birthed out of this ministry. We want to reach a wider audience and be a blessing to more, but we need your support. At the moment, Rhema Radio is not backed by any one church, organization, or business. It is powered by volunteers. While I'm encouraged by the handful of supporters who has given, we need more partners. If you believe there is a need for positive, faith-inspired Malaysian content, why don't you consider partnering with us? Go to rhema.io/support to find out more. Our prayer is that we connect with the right partners and together let's sow into the digital mission field and impact lives far and wide. God bless.
Hi friends, this week's midweek service sermon was from Ui Chin Ek shared at FGAKL, entitled I Love My Church. Listen to that and other sermons at rhemarad.io or anywhere else you get your podcast. And now for this week's interview.
You're listening to Rhema Radio, the weekly podcast on faith, culture, music and more. I'm Kit Chan and today we'll be discussing about suicide, depression and hope. And in the studio with me today is Patrick Cheng, President of National Association of Christian Counselors, a licensed counselor and a part-time lecturer. His passion is to come alongside church leaders to build emotionally healthy churches through speaking engagement and training workshop. Welcome, Patrick.
Hi, nice to be here.
Also with us is Jimmy Ong, a dyslexic and school dropped out who defied all odds to become his own boss, only to be declared bankrupt at the age of 30. With his marriage ending in divorce and his son's death due to brain cancer, he contemplated suicide. Today, restored, Jimmy shares a message of hope as an inspiration speaker, resilience trainer, and life coach, as well as through his book, Breakthrough. Hi, Jimmy.
Hello. Pleasure to be here.
Good to have you both. Jimmy, I think let's dive straight into it. At the moment, we have seen your YouTube clip, that's like 5 million hits and above, talking about the episode that you were actually contemplating suicide. Could you run us through what was actually going through your mind at that time?
Then in year 2004, that's where I hit the last point where in the midst of, I lost everything, and even my son has just passed away because of brain cancer. It was really very tough for me, and I almost want to just to call it a day and then just end it. And I remember after the funeral, when I was up in the 11th floor, I was looking down, and my mind was just telling me that I think it's over. So I almost jumped, but it was this little voice that came. I really thank God for this little voice. It really sounds like my son then, and it says, "Daddy, what about the three promises?" So it was because of the 3 promises that stopped me from jumping and to just to work on these 3 promises.
Wow, that's certainly not easy to overcome that, and just the little voice. Patrick, what do you think transpired?
Well, there were various factors as I hear Jimmy's story to that depression. Right? Depression don't come overnight. Right? Likewise for suicide, you and me wouldn't suddenly just have this thought and kill ourselves. So there were stress factors that led to that. And I like to look into the scriptures later on to see how God actually had a plan to help that person in depression and suicidal ideation, to help the person to recover.
Yeah, so I just want to backpedal a bit, Jimmy. And you say you thank God for the voice. At that moment, were you a believer, or what's the concept of God for you at that?
Okay, that time then was no. Though I know that my late son, my son then Sean, was a Christian at that time, but not me, right? So it was really, then I wouldn't know how to thank God for, stopping me from jumping down. But it is only after years, then I know that indeed, like what Brother Patrick was saying, that, God has a plan to prosper me and then not to destroy me. So that was that challenges that actually builds me to where am I today, so I can do my ministry as well as my work. Yeah.
So going through that, what would your advice be for someone who, you was lucky or maybe you were blessed to hear a voice at that point of time, but I shudder to think that if that day you did not had the little voice, knowing what you know now, what would your advice be for someone who's actually going through, we don't wish upon anyone, but this is a divorce, a death of a young son, and definitely not something people look forward to, but at that point, so what would be some of your advice for people at that point of time?
I guess I looked into those 3 promises that I promised him, and that has actually prompted me to know that, what's going to happen after when I jump. So since I have not delivered these 3 promises, so my advice is to let those people that may have that kind of thoughts, that even if you end your life, it doesn't mean that all the solutions, all the problems will be solved. It actually, you can just leave a very big problem to the rest of the people that you love as well. So I have something to look forward. I have a task. I have a mission to achieve that 3 promises. So basically, to me, more so my advice to some people where there seems to be no hope, to know that there's something, that goal, there's something that you want to achieve. Why don't you try to achieve something, the mission of your life that needs to get things done, and get it done, so you got something to look forward to, something to work on, rather than, everything was like, it's over. So yeah, that's more like, having a vision to see there's hope after all. So what am I going to do? Because to me, my thought was very simple. Everybody got to die anyway. So since nobody's going to get out of this world alive, why don't I use this time to do my best, right? To achieve the 3 promises.
Thank you for sharing. We will go for a short break and we come back and we will talk a bit more about this.
Rhema Radio.
Have you ever felt inadequate of not knowing what to do when someone shares a difficult problem to you? Well, the National Association of Christian Counselors is here to help, offering half-day courses like counseling skills, family counseling, understanding adolescence, addiction, and crisis counseling. We also run counseling conferences. The next one will be held on 7 to 8 of September this year, where the theme will be on Christian counseling towards spiritual formation across the lifespan. Kindly visit our homepage at nacc-malaysia.org for more information. Thank you.
Hi, we are back in the studio with Patrick and also Jimmy Ong. We are discussing about suicide, depression, and hope. Welcome back, guys.
Thank you. Kit, I understand that you went through a very challenging time as well. Would you like to share on the difficult time that you went through?
Well, Patrick, thanks for asking. Yeah, so actually, quite recently, just before I turned 40, I was struggling a fair bit with turning 40. And to the world, I seemingly have it all, a great wife, 3 kids, a best-selling book, and a great career, and many accolades. But I remember quite vividly, and I just want to dive into that episode. But of course, I was struggling with turning 40 for a couple of months. I think the biggest fear for myself was actually my best was behind me, not ahead of me, and I was struggling with that for a couple of months. And remember that particular episode in church that day. It's just like a typical Sunday. I was there with the kids, and I sat down there, and I suddenly had a question for God. I was like, God, if we are promised a better place, why not now? And we certainly think that for a 40-year-old man married with 3 kids, that's actually very dark thoughts. Not only that, I actually hear 2 distinct voices, as if we were watching, cartoon. There was an angel and devil. One voice was like, perhaps this is the angel's voice, and he said, kid, your kids are still young. what's gonna happen to them? So the other voice said, well, don't worry lah, they just have to go back to Klang, better house, better car, better food. I have great in-laws who provide quite a bit for us. And then the second voice, what about your wife? Don't you love her so much? She's pretty, she's so loving, and she's still so young too. Then the other voice was like, exactly, maybe she deserves a second chance. Wow. Yeah, but for myself personally, I know that every time I'm served with a thought, I need to pray, and I would run to my wife and we prayed about it. And seemingly all these lies or all these scenarios that was in my head just disappear. And of course, God later encouraged me with a verse that when I prayed upon, and she gave it to me in Hebrews 10:35 to 10:36. Yeah, so that's the little episode that I had. So what do you think transpired coming from your background, in counseling?
Well, Kit, it's difficult to say, your situation is not very typical of people who were struggling in depression. Your story tells of you being a successful person, but perhaps deep down, right, there was something that you wanted more. Yeah, but for many other people, their issues will be, as what Jimmy shared earlier on, they went through a crisis. Perhaps, as I reflect a bit deeper, perhaps you were having a midlife crisis. Something that you did not experience previously in your adolescence years, where perhaps in today's society, where a lot of youngsters were brought up in a very sheltered environment. Yeah, they had everything. Their parents cared for them and all this. So they did not really go through the first adolescence identity crisis. So during midlife, that identity crisis will hit them more.
I think that's certainly true, because for the longest time, I built my career since I was 22 as a photographer, and then not soon after that, a lot of titles and accolades was given, and I was always deemed to be a celebrity photographer. I think I was actually personally, now that as you spoke to me, that actually trapped me, because I felt that in my life there's so many facade, but most people would just see one certain facade. They want to be with that particular part of me, where there's so much more. Suppose it's a big label to live up to, and also that the label actually trapped me as well. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe perhaps we've got to pray about this more. Yeah, Jimmy, what are your thoughts? About hopelessness, and how do we find hope in the midst of so many uncertainty that today the youth or anyone is facing? Yeah.
Well, Kid, to see hope, I will see life at a glance. To me, it's very much about how we enjoy the last 20 years. It depends on the 40 years, what we have done. So to me, it's very much about looking at life in a perspective to know that, you have this certain time, okay? So what are you going to do with your time? And, I can't just end it just like that, because my late son was the one that introduced me to Christ before he died. So that really gives me an opportunity to see in God's perspective about life, and then how life is so precious, not only to us, also to him as well. So to me, I look at it that it is true that yes, God has a plan to prosper everyone. But as much as we know that God has a plan to prosper me and not to destroy me, I would have to see life in a way that though I have my desire, though I have my sort of like the best outcome for my life, I can't see that thing anymore. I got to ask myself that what is one thing in my life right now that is not working well, and I work on it, because my future is in God's hands. So I have to know that yes, if I'm stuck now, how I'm going to get myself unstuck. So same like what I'm trying to advise now is probably perhaps some of you might be stuck. So when you are stuck, think into the particular area, why are you stuck, and what are some of the things that you can do to get yourself unstuck. So I focus on the part where I think I need to get myself up on my feet again. So yeah, if you can't work on that small part, that area of your life that's not working well to make it work, it's very difficult to achieve the big dreams, desire. So we know that big dreams, big desire is in God's hands. So what is one thing that's not working well, and then get it done?
Thank you, Jimmy. Patrick, what do you think? Sometimes it is one thing that what we know. What if what we feel overtakes what we know?
Yeah, precisely. As Jimmy was sharing his testimony, the word that came out very strongly was the word stuck. In his situation, it was good that he was able to think through because the son make him keep 3 promises. Right, that's why he stuck on to that and able to go through those difficult moments. But for many other people, neurobiologically, they are not in the position to process through, to think through properly. So many times they fall prey to their own biological deficiency in their brain, which is serotonin. Yeah, now serotonin is a transmitter to translate messages in the brain. So when a person who is low on serotonin, the person just cannot think properly. Therefore, the person needs very practical help, and we see that. That's precisely what God did in the scripture to help this person to go through that difficult time even before God ministered to the person with deeper interventions.
And that is Elijah.
Yes, you'll be surprised. A prophet, the prophet Elijah. According to the DSM, that is the Manual for Mental Health Disorders, Elijah was actually having depression. Yeah, he was mentally suicidal, emotionally depressed, relationally withdrawn, physically exhausted, spiritually down, vocationally he gave up.
So we will never know what transpired, but Elijah was also fat, right? I mean, as in he was given food. Yeah. So I think medically, 70% of our serotonin is actually produced in the gut and not in the brain. So maybe that's why God fed him first, yeah. But we will never know for sure. We are now going for a short break and we'll be back to chat a bit more.
Rhema Radio. Dignity for Children Foundation marks its 20th year of transforming lives of underprivileged children through quality education in 2018. An anniversary dinner will be held on the evening of September 29th. It will be an evening of celebrating the children and also looking forward as Dignity seeks to raise funds to build an urban youth education village to continue its work. The keynote speaker for the night is Dr. Kim Tan. More information on the dinner and how to purchase tickets can be found on www.dignityforchildren.org or call us at 03-4044-1397.
Okay, gentlemen, now we always equate suicide and depression. Of course, there is also a biological factor to that. But apart from that, we always equate it with powerlessness. When people lost hope or people don't have anything going for them. But what if the scenario was as such that they think there's a lot of things in the world that I can't control, but this is the choice that is truly in my hand, meaning this is one time they can exercise their power and their control, and this is one decision they make for themselves. So what if you are at that spot, if nothing else is going for you and you only have one chance to prove that your self-worth and dignity because this is in your hand?
All right, so that begets the question of how much power, how much cognitive power the person has at that point of time. Now, going back to our serotonin discussion, most people in having depression, their serotonin is very low. So how can you say that they are making the best choice in that situation? If they were only able to go through the difficult period, for example, being involuntarily confined to a hospital and given proper psychiatric treatment, after a few weeks, the person after recovery will reflect back on the moment and say it was a dangerous moment that I went through, as what Jimmy shared earlier on when he was on the 11th floor of the building. He could have jumped at that moment. He thought perhaps the end it all,
But we can't see that. So how could the society or the rest play a part? Like, because seemingly that day I walked in the church, I'm sure no one could tell that I was serving that kind of dark thoughts. How can we measure? And definitely serotonin levels is not something that we could measure at home.
Well, there are actually some factors that you can see. Most of the time, people commit suicide. People able to commit suicide rather is because the people around there did not see those symptoms. Yeah. So if we are able to see those symptoms, then we're able to help those people. Like, for example, in my practice as a counselor, I would have to alert the family members to care for my client if I sense that he is having severe depression, because in his depression mode, he will not be able to make wise choices. Yeah. So family members, close ones, play a great part in helping the people to prevent them from taking their lives.
And Jimmy, your work is very meaningful today. You talk about breakthrough. I think before breakthrough, survival or maybe perhaps resilience is a big part to that before coming to breakthrough. Now, how do people stay resilient?
Well, I think I'm not sure particularly any particular person how would they think, but for me, it's the big part that starts from the big decision, and it really kind of you got to make that very courageous decision. If I'm going to do this the same way all over again and again and again, the thing the same way, I don't think I'm not going to have any good outcome. So the decision, when we are stuck in the situation, you will have a loved one, the people that matters will come around, to assist, to help, or things like that. But ultimately, it still boils down to myself, self-individual, to decide what are you going to do with your life right now. What is going to happen if you're not doing anything now? What's going to happen after 1 year, 3 years? What's going to happen? I have to really, use the provoking question. Though I know that it's tough for people to ask the question, but I did ask myself the question, what is going to happen to me in 1 year time if I'm not doing anything right now? So I says, no, this enough is enough. I have a task to do. I have something to do. So in order to get new result, I need to do things very differently. Perhaps do something new that I've never done before. So I started in a very courageous 3 things that I've done. I mean, thank God that, there was a Bible that shows me these 3 very important parts about nature, about light, about our body, sweat and all that. So I made a very courageous decision. There are 3 things that actually I have applied. Though I know that this is not going to lead me anywhere, but they can lead me a new result. So I started to go out to the sun, go to the nature, and just walk and sweat it out. Now, this is not easy for many, because if you are stuck in the depression mode, to go out there under the sun and get yourself sweat out is like those maybe mentally well person afraid of darkness, but go to a haunted house. It's like the other way around. So I need to make that very courageous decision that I need to go out under the sun right now. And I want to get myself some sweat and also to see the nature. Now, I started only 500 meter, that is all. Just walk and get myself sweat. And I increased to 7, to 1 km, to 1.2, and now I run marathon. But the whole thing is to know that 3 very important things when you're stuck, and you know that your problem will not go into to have any solution. Made the very courageous decision. Go out there under the sun, get yourself a bit of a sweat, and see nature, and you'll be amazed that nature can speak to you where God will use that.
Thank you for sharing. I think for some of us, running a marathon is the furthest thing in our mind, but I read that that is actually absolutely a great tip, to go under the sun. For those who think that is a big challenge. I once read that you don't motivate yourself to get out of the door, just motivate yourself to tie your shoelace, and then it will lead to the next thing. Now, what can we do more of, Patrick? What do you think as a society, or maybe just back to the family unit? Even for myself, and I remember, when I was feeling a bit of challenges, sometimes maybe the wife would say something like, just man up, just man up, because even wife doesn't understand. So as smallest unit family, what can we do?
Right, precisely. You said these things that are so vital, so important, right, to a person who is having depression. Yeah. Jimmy talked about going out into the sun. Actually, that's what God did to Elijah, right? God moved him from Beersheba. God moved him on to Mount Horeb. Now, it's actually, by today's calculation, probably it takes only about 10 days. But Elijah took 40 days because he was having depression. He was moving very slowly. But the very act of him moving helped him to recover. Yeah, that journey of moving, walking under the sun, perhaps. The sun actually helps a lot. So back to your question about the family members. A person having depression won't feel like going out. That's why the family members don't try to counsel the person at this point of time. Don't try to tell Bible verses about rejoicing. Yeah, God says you must rejoice even in your difficult situations. But cognitively speaking, biologically speaking, the person just cannot process what you're trying to say. So just move the person out, take the person out in the morning, go to the park, go for a walk, even if a short walk, 500 meters, a lot already, just walk slowly. If need to, get the person on the wheelchair, push the person out, get the person out. Right?
Yeah, I just want to add on this part what Patrick was saying, that family members to support and all that. My experience as an sort of depressed man before, with a deep depression, grief and all that, I don't really need people to come and tell me every time that it's time for, let's go for a meal, let's go out, let's be happy, everything will be okay and things like that, because it will make things worse. The best thing that I would advise, if you have somebody that matters that is going through depression, just be present. Just be present. Just be there for them. You don't have to ask them anything, but your task is to help to find opportunity and way to bring them out to the sun. Go for a walk or something. But don't say too much things because they cannot process in their mind. But just be there. When it's time to be there, food is just there, everything is there, just be there to know that, my family members. So when they are able to see the part, they know the love. So love will overshadow everything. And that's where the whole thing is what God is all about.
Well, Jimmy, as we are wrapping up, I'm sure that in your past experience, there's a lot of things that we can learn from. Now, where can we learn more about your book and about your resilience training?
Well, I have to say that I am fortunate that my story was told in quite major medias in Singapore. But if you Google Jimmy Ong life story, you probably will be able to get some of the TV channel as well as YouTube and some of my story as well from the magazine. So to me, very much to me, I always like to tell myself, that was a word that comes to me, free up your mind. And how to free up your mind is not to think about what other people thinking about you.
Yep. Thank you. Now, Patrick, we definitely learned a lot, and we've never seen Prophet Elijah in that light. Yeah. So what if someone want to learn more, from a biblical context on how to overcome depression, suicide, and, finding hope in the midst of all of this? Now, where can they go to?
Well, the Lord has helped me to understand people. I used to be a pastor, but over the past 20 years, the Lord has opened doors for me to study counseling, psychology. So today, a few of us have started an organization called the National Association of Christian Counselors, where we provide training to help lay people to be more effective in their approach to help people, not just people going through depression, but people having problems, right? They're stuck can't move on in life, what's the best thing that you can do? So at NECC, we have various courses that help people to improve their counseling skills and knowledge, where they can be more effective to help people in need.
And is this a full-time or a part-time course?
Well, this course is part-time. It's called the Certificate in Lay Christian Counseling. It's being spread out over a period of 3 years, where there are core courses like basic counseling skills and family counseling skills. And then there will be workshops on a bi-monthly basis on a Saturday morning for 3 hours only. This workshop will cover areas like stages of life, from birth right up to senior citizenship. And then mental health disorders, addictions, sexuality, and also trauma and crisis.
Thank you so much. Now, I just want to wrap up the show, gentlemen. As you are talking about walks, right after the episode that I was in church and we went home and prayed with my wife, and everything seems to be okay. The first thing I did was, because I actually track my steps every day, and I say, darling, I want to go for a walk. And during my walk, I actually listened to a podcast, and this particular one was actually from Elevation Church, Pastor Stephen Furtick. And because the 3 to 6 months before that, prior to my episode, something that was bothering me, I already felt that my emotions were a bit not so stable. So I beginning to up my podcast intake. And that particular day, as I went down walk, and I felt God was speaking to me through the podcast. And I say, God, if you are speaking to me, give me this verse. Now, if I pick John 3:16, it could be a coincidence, but I pick a verse which is rather unusual, which I mentioned earlier, was actually Hebrews 10:35-36. And I'm going to read it to you. The verse actually says that, so do not throw away your confidence, it will be richly rewarded. You need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what He has promised. I say, wow, God, that's a lot of revelation. And I continue speaking to God, and I say, God, what does this mean? But I was tired by then, so I went to bed. The next day, when I do a devotion, following a Bible plan, and it's called 6 Stages of a Call of a Change Agent. And I asked God that morning, what does this mean? And before I go into even the scriptures, the devotion proper, the title was this: Stage 1, crisis is often the front door of your larger story. So that really encouraged me. So I don't wish upon anyone to go through an episode of depression or serving suicidal thoughts, but whatever that is currently happening, for me, the take is greater promise is always ahead of us. It might not be on earth, it will be somewhere. So that is the lie that the enemy want to feed us. And if you are going through a crisis, just hang on there, because it's often the front door of our larger story. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us, and it has been great chatting with you. You've been listening to Rhema Radio.
Berserah padamu, menghadap takhtamu, ku bawa diriku, sujud di kakimu, darahmu melimpah, sucikan diriku. Kau pandangku berharga, kau panggil namaku, kerana begitu besar kasih Bapa akan dunia ini. Kau kurniakan anakmu untuk mati bagi diriku, supaya setiap orang
This is a short testimony. So most Wycliffe staff are supported staff rather than salaried, so we receive financial support from churches and individuals for both our personal and work expenses. And I was a bit apprehensive about how all this would work when I first heard about it. Would I be able to get enough support? How does this happen? So miraculously, it did really work out very quickly. Very soon after I joined Wycliffe, I received a gift from my mother's Bible study group ladies, which was very encouraging. An old secondary school friend put me in touch with his church, and they decided to support me. My grandfather's church in Batu Pahat sent me a gift just out of the blue. I did go and visit them later, but at that time, I didn't have any contact with them. And God just provided through so many different means. My mom did a lot. Both my parents, my mom's and my dad's friends supported me. People I didn't know, strangers who came to know about my work through Wycliffe. I've been serving with Wycliffe for almost 10 years now, and God has always provided enough for all my needs, whether personal or work or education or travel. We may think that we don't have a lot of resources, but God does. In Matthew 6, Jesus says, "Do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear." And I've really found that to be really true in my life. The Lord definitely provides.
Hi, my name is Angeline and I am from firstjoy.com to share a Bible reading from Matthew chapter 5 verse 14 to 16. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light the lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Amen.
This segment features music from Masna Thomas. This episode was edited and mixed by Veronica Ng and recorded by Moses Chan at Rodeo Studio. Do connect with us at facebook.com/RemaRad.10. Comment, like, and share our weekly show so we can do more. Remember, God is in control in all situations. And even if you don't feel like praying, talk to God about it.
I found it on Rhema Radio.